All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to take us to Key Standard 9.2. Key Standard 9.2 is technological advances and limitations after 1900, in particular with a focus on disease. The suggested skill is making connections, and regrettably, it is far too easy to make connections right now because of the global coronavirus pandemic that's been going on as I've been going about the process of making this. But anyway, the key standard reads diseases as well as medical and scientific developments had significant effects on populations around the world. So, some of those medical advances we looked at in the last standard, so, like for instance, improvements in vaccines or antibiotics. Some of the scientific developments include, like, for example, the seed varieties produced by Norman Borlaug or some of that stuff. That's going to have significant effects on populations all around the world. So, despite all of this huge amounts of death in World War One, the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918, as well as the Second World War and all of the deaths and destruction that came as a result of that, despite all of that, the human population continued to massively spike up, to grow at an exponential rate, which it has done so until today, where we're sitting here in 2020 with something like about 7.5 billion people in the world. Populations are expected to be about 9.15 billion as of about 2050 is the expectations. Anyway, diseases are going to kill a lot of people. They're going to not completely curb growth in populations, however. Diseases associated with poverty persisted. So when you see that word persisted, you should be thinking continuity. While other diseases emerged as new epidemics and threats to human populations, in some cases leading to social disruption. These outbreaks spurred technological and medical advances. Some diseases occurred at higher rates merely because of increased longevity. All right, so first we need to get into the continuities. So for this, of course, we're going to look at the World Health Organization website. Malaria has been a major world disease, killed people all over the planet for a very long time. Spread primarily by mosquitoes, uh, although potentially other ways, but mostly it's going to be in tropical areas. So that's why we see in these warmer areas. Uh, in 2018, there were about 228 million people who became sick with malaria, and of those, about 405,000 died. So, very large number of people for that continuity. Next is cholera. Cholera is an acute diarrheal disease that can kill within hours if it's left untreated. This continues to affect people mostly that are having issues with getting access to clean, fresh water. So, a lot of the time, you'll hear about these outbreaks when there's problems with breaking water infrastructure or something like that. And then, of course, there's also, say, tuberculosis. Tuberculosis continues to be a disease that kills a lot of people in especially poorer areas. So go ahead and hit fact sheets, tuberculosis. Uh, 1.5 million people died from tuberculosis in 2018, including 251,000 of those who had HIV. All right, so those are the diseases that continue. There are major continuities. All right. Next up, we have, say, diabetes, which has become far more prevalent, especially in areas where we have type 2 diabetes spreading, where people have less healthy diets. 422 million people worldwide have diabetes, and this is going to be mostly type 2 diabetes, particularly in low and middle income countries. It's one of the main causes of death in the world. There's at least two different types. Type 1 diabetes, body attacks pancreas and makes it so that you don't produce enough insulin. And type 2 diabetes means that people ineffectively use insulin. Again, one of the major causes of death around the world. Next is heart disease and cardiovascular diseases in general. Cardiovascular diseases are the number one cause of death globally. About 17.9 million lives are taken each year. A lot of that is because people don't eat a healthy diet. So let's take a look. World Health Organization, healthy diet. Can help against all these kinds of non-communicable diseases. So like, for instance, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and cancer. Really important to take a look. The World Health Organization recommends that people eat a healthy, limited amount of, say, free sugars to avoid excess fat intake, not more than 30%. And of course, to limit salt intake to, like, for instance, 5 grams a day, which is something that virtually no one that I know does. The United States is pretty well known for being unhealthy and having a lot of overweight and obese people, and a lot of people don't follow these recommendations. Anyway, next up is, say, Alzheimer's or dementia in general. So dementia, around 50 million people worldwide have dementia. And then, of course, you can see cancer also, what's been known as the emperor of all maladies. Cancer is number 2 in terms of the number of people who die from it each year. Number 1, heart disease. Number 2, cancer. Cancer, about 9.6 million deaths, or about 1 in 6 deaths worldwide in 2018. So, of course, the immediate thing that's going to come to mind is, like, say, lung cancer, which is a good reminder for why we shouldn't smoke, but also, say, other types of cancers. And if you'd like to see Neil Barnard talk some about Alzheimer's disease, you can click here. And then, of course, we have the emerging epidemics. The 1918 flu pandemic is a really good example. Between 50 and 100 million people killed, according to Robert Strayer, more than 5 to 10 times, then perished on the battlefields of World War I. A good reminder that flu can be dangerous and very deadly. If you'd like to click on it, you can click here and see the Spanish flu DBQ that was issued out in 2015 from the College Board. The flu pandemic of 1918, they suggest, killed an estimated 50 million people, quite a lot more than the total casualties of, say, the First World War. Anyway, pretty massive changes and continuities when it comes to disease. And of course, again, the COVID-19 disease that's spreading around the world today is a good reminder of some of the limitations that we have in trying to deal with some of these things. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll get you in the next video.